right, so I've got a couple members of the band Mandala on the line, so I'm going to go ahead and give them the opportunity to introduce themselves.
Hey there, my name's Abe, and I play guitar in the band Mandala.
I'm Sean Connolly, and I play drums in Mandala.
Excellent. So, with these interviews, I always like to start at the beginning. So, why don't each of you take a turn kind of expressing how you first found music and, what about it touched you and made you motivated to want to participate in, the broader music industry?
Sure. I started as early as like 7 years old, at least like really getting interested in music. My mom used to play a lot of like old school rock and roll, like a lot of Rod Stewart, like Twisted Sister, AC/DC, stuff like that. And I started to like it because that's what I was being fed. And then I played a video game called Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, and the soundtrack completely took over my life. I got really obsessed with a lot of the songs. And then eventually I watched The School of Rock, and it absolutely changed my life at a very young age. All I wanted to do was just be a rock star. Like every year for Halloween, I was like wearing my mom's leather and stuff like that. Kind of crazy, yeah. And then she bought me my first guitar. It was this little red shiny guitar from Walmart. It was like a First Act or something like that. And I kind of just was self-taught for like a long time, and just like had a really creative mind early on. And, was experimenting, and eventually I kind of really started to get the fundamentals throughout middle school. And through high school, I was like, okay, I'm in high school now, I'm a teen. Like, I really want to start a band. Like, that would make me so cool. Like, that was kind of my first, thought as any youthful high school student has. But, but I really did end up finding Morgan in high school. She was a young prodigy, so she's the singer. But at first I really wanted her to play the bass because I had like met this other like older girl who was like, yeah, I'm a singer. And I was like, well, she's got to be the singer of my band, but eventually what ended up happening was I realized that Morgan was not a bass player, and she was in fact a really good singer, like all along, and just was like being shy about it, or she just didn't really say anything to me until her mom kind of exposed her. And I was like, well, hold on, let's hear it. And she sang for me, and she had this very like beautiful melodic voice. Almost like it was like a siren, I was completely like, whoa, like that was like really cool. Me and her started writing music. I was like 16, 17 at the time. She was like 14, 15. And yeah, we just started writing music, eventually found like some other kids in high school that wanted to kind of be in a band, and they all had their parts, and we wrote a record. And we ended up finding this kid from like one of the art schools nearby to record it. He was like a young kind of prodigy as well. And he did it for free. And it was like the best thing that we had ever sounded. Like, we had no idea how to do any sort of audio recording, mastering, anything. So it was pretty crazy. And then years later, we're still playing. And that's pretty much my story. Try to sum it up a little bit. But Sean, you want to talk really quick?
My progression in music was pretty natural. I always had an interest in music, and my parents have no musical ability, but they're very interested in like new music that came out. So like my parents were really into like the Strokes and the Arctic Monkeys when I was growing up. Like that was like their favorite bands, my parents. It was always playing. It was always 90s music and 80s music, 70s music on the CD player. So I would get pillows out and I would hit them, and drums is the only thing I play instrumentally. So started in concert band and had a natural progression that way. Eventually worked my way up to a drum set in 8th grade, and I've played in live bands my whole life since 8th grade, and stopped playing shows for the first time since during the pandemic, and we were able to come back. So that is how I got into music, was basically my parents always playing music around the house and just me having a natural interest.
Okay. And then kind of a similar question, but a little bit different for each of you. At what point did you kind of decide music was what you were going to start committing to? That was going to be your hobby and turn it into your life? And the reason that I asked that question is because there are some people that, have that similar story of growing up around music, but, they go off and do something else rather than committing to the idea of music.
Yeah, I mean, I was a basketball player my whole life, pretty much before I even played music. And that was my whole life. My parents were big sports people as well. And so that was my whole life. And then, there was just something about music, though, where it seemed to be like, your own world. You were kind of your own boss, and, you were able to make your own time and whatnot. So I went from playing basketball my whole life to eventually realizing that music is something that makes me feel a certain way, something that basketball doesn't. And it wasn't like, oh, I need to play music for the rest of my life, but it was one of those things where it was a burning desire to never stop almost.
Mm-hmm.
How about you, Abe?
Yeah, I mean, I just, again, I was completely like entranced by music, but not even so much music, but like performing. I was doing theater like as early as middle school, and I just, I guess I really loved being in front of an audience. Something about it was just like so empowering, and it just really gave me a lot of confidence at an early age. And then when I realized, I really love music, I'm writing all my own songs. Before I even like know how to play instrument properly, I was writing songs.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like I had all this creative energy, and then once I kind of find out that like through live music you could really just let it out and collaborate with other people, I mean, that's what really sold the deal for me. And it's just something that's very much become a part of my everyday life and my existence, and my personality. It's all been crafted through music and makes me want to never stop.
Yeah, and I can agree with Abe where just like going on top of him, like when I was talking before and I said like the burning desire to never stop, that burning desire was in the same room with your friends, you know, collaborating with your friends. Like, there's a special feeling you get when you're with people that you love and you trust and you make natural music together. There's no better feeling, and I didn't want to stop doing that.
Excellent. So that kind of leads into my next question, which is, Abe, it kind of sounds like you've kind of always been in this current project. Have you ever stepped out or worked on solo stuff to develop your own project, or have you been solely committed to Mandala?
So I would say like as far as like commitment and energy goes, it's always been solely to Mandala. I think it's sort of a passion project. I think it's safe to say that. So in a way, it's like I'll write songs and I'm like, oh man, feels like it could be a Mandala song. Let me see what they think, and I'll kind of show it to them. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But I actually have a really funny alter ego that like only my close friends know about. It's called Zab, and that's literally just like the last three letters of my last name in all caps. But I sort of like have this like alter ego where I feel like my soul can get taken over by like other musicians that are of the greats, and I just kind of get this like kind of rappy, soulful, like high energy, like personality.
Basically, he's saying he's schizophrenic.
Yeah, right. Right. But and I'll make demos for my own kind of pleasure.
And then Sean, you mentioned that you had been through many different bands. Let's discuss that a little bit. How many experiences with working musicians did it take you to find your current position?
Yeah, I mean, I played in probably 12 different bands before I joined Mandala. I'm Mandala's third and final drummer. But yeah, no, I played in all types of bands growing up. I, did jazz band in high school, and I got to meet a lot of older kids that were way better than me and were way more talented than me. And, it's like playing basketball. When you play with people better than you get better over time. So I was so fortunate to meet a lot of great musicians when I grew up, and played rock music, punk rock bands, jazz, Latin, all types of gigs. I was in a reggae band before I was in Mandala, all types of stuff. So I have a decently eclectic, just genre understanding of the drums and percussion. So I try to bring all that to the table with Mandala as naturally as I can without, forcing it too much.
Sure. And so, now that you guys are together, you've got your full kind of lineup set up. Have you guys been recording or out doing shows? I know since obviously you've been together, or the band has existed for some time, I'm sure you've done shows prior to, the past couple of years, but what's it been like working in the past couple of years to continue the project?
Yeah, I mean, the pandemic kind of took us out of the rat race that we were in for so long of just touring and, playing as many shows as we could. And so we were able to pretty much stick together in a basement for months and months and months on end and write this whole record. We have, a record that's pretty much not shelved, but in the works. It's about 18 different tracks. We're going to, release them, however accordingly. But yeah, we have a ton of music that we wrote over the quarantine. It allowed us to focus on ourselves, allowed us to focus on the music that we were writing and kind of redirect maybe some of the branding and marketing that we had. And now that things are, getting back to a little bit more normalcy, we've been packing up some really good shows, and there's a lot of anticipation for us to come back because we were, known being a live band in the East and over here. So now that we have some shows booked up on both coasts, there's a lot of anticipation. It's, a big event these days instead of doing, the same place like once a month or whatever.
Sure, definitely. So on that note, you said you have a bunch of material ready to go out. What do you project your release cadence will be like? Do you think you're gonna go for like the single a month kind of thing, or just put it out as a LP?
We want to keep it as secret as possible, but we'll get you the deets.
Okay.
The goal is to basically, release a single and then release an EP. The single will be on that EP, okay, and then release another single or so, then make another EP with that single on the EP. So now you have, 2 singles and 2 EPs. And then we might release a couple singles over the summer, kind of like summer singles. Okay. And then during the fall time, we might release the final iteration of it, which is going to encompass both EPs and then 5 to 6 more additional songs for another EP, but it's going to be like a deluxe edition where it's going to be like a 15-song album.
Awesome. Very cool. It seems like with the way that, the industry and streaming and everything is going, and also the way, marketing is in the blink of an eye these days, people are just addressing, release cadences in a very different way.
Yeah, no, I firmly agree. It's definitely a market you need to adapt to these days. And the last year or two, so many different artists have done really cool release things, and people seem to really enjoy it. So we're just trying to, do it our own way, a way that feels cool to us, and a way that, we could really gauge our audience and kind of stretch the release dollar of, just the hype of the whole thing and everything, sure, all the way through a whole year of 2022, most likely.
Excellent. So coming up, in the next several years or so, 5-10 years, where would you like to see your guys' career go?
I'd love to be happy.
Indeed.
How about you?
Happier. I think it's just the ultimate goal is, really just to play for larger audiences, really just share the sounds and, just kind of spread our message. We really just love to connect with people. It's very evident on stage when we connect with each other, and seeing that on a much larger scale and just kind of building this community up is just really something we look forward to, and all the benefits that come along with that.
Sure. A very good answer. So why don't you each take a turn kind of sharing a couple memories that you have of, really prominent things that have happened to you surrounding music, whether it be, a recording session or, a show you went to that was either good or bad.
Yeah, there's stories to tell for years now, one thing that was really hard but really rewarding was tracking our EP, our last release before the single that we just put out. It was pretty much just like a 5-day, 6-song deal. So it was like a really high pressure situation. I wouldn't recommend doing it unless you really had to. And the Beatles had to do a couple of those. But yeah, it was really honestly an experience that just pushed us to really focus and really get organized. And from that, we really learned a great lesson as far as trying to be organized and really mapping out what you're going to do and realizing how valuable studio time is, both financially and just, on other levels.
Yeah, I guess for me, some significant things is, whether it was with Mandala or not, there's moments that I've had where, as a musician yourself, I'm sure you can attest, where you just have an indescribable feeling of ecstasy sometimes when you hit that certain part of a solo, or the band is just tighter than ever and you're really pumping the crowd, and it seems like nothing can go wrong. Those moments to me are, better than drugs, better than sex, better than a lot of things. And that's why I still play music to this day. A good story I can give that I remember, outside of that is just meeting Abe. And how you just have that gut feeling when you meet somebody new that it's just kind of like, oh, gonna be with this guy for a minute, like strap in for the ride. And yeah, but we've had so many fun tour stories, and Morgan's almost died, and like we'll be in Philadelphia partying on like a rooftop, and like Philly's kind of weird where there's not a lot of rooftop access in most buildings, but this one party that we got invited to after a show had a rooftop access, but they put like a kitchen table in the third floor, and then on the table was a chair, and then on the chair was a bunk bed ladder that went to a hole in the ceiling. So literally the entire party, like all like 45 people, like went up this sketchy ladder, and so we were all partying up there, all having a great time, like taking pictures. Wow, this is so beautiful. The Philly skyline is so great. And then we were like, all right, it's time to go down. Fun's over. Literally the whole party's up there. And Morgan volunteers to go down first. Somebody had spilled a beer on the table. And when she put her foot down on the bunk bed ladder, it put pressure on the chair. Since there was pressure on the chair and there was wet beer, the chair slipped, and she like almost fell. She grabbed on both sides of like this hole basically, and we had to like, I was like, a big brother, like in shock, picked her up and like lifted her up like a claw game back onto the rooftop. And then we were like, oh my God, the entire party's on this rooftop. And it's like an 8-foot drop through this hole. And it's like, you're going to get injured for real. So the whole party was there. So we thought we were like so screwed the whole party. So we're like looking for anything, and we realized our bass player Matt Rosano was not with us. Who was not, and we were like looking for him. So we look out over the ledge of the rooftop, and we see him like making out with a girl on the steps of the apartment. And we're all like, Matt, let us in, help us out. And yeah, if it wasn't for him hitting on a woman in Philadelphia, then we all might have perished. We all might have starved on the rooftop and never played another show again.
But we all had some.
Yeah, that definitely sounds like some chaos for sure. So why don't you guys throw out some of your social media links? Where can people actually take a look at what you're doing and investigate you?
Yeah, we are on everything at Mandala CT. That's Mandala CT. You can find us on Spotify. You can find us on Apple Music. We're on Pandora. We're on Amazon. We're on everything you can imagine. We're even on Deezer. And you can find our music there. We have a few albums out for you to listen to, and we've got more stuff coming soon. But we actually post a lot on Instagram, so if you follow us on there, you'll see some cool stuff.
Excellent. And so I like to give the people that I'm interviewing the opportunity to put out their last word at the end of the interview. So why don't you each take a turn to kind of just put out a message that, you kind of feel you resonate with.
Okay. A message that we always tell each other right before we go on stage. We kind of have like a little brand prayer, and we get together in a circle, put our heads together, and we go, we want to go out there and we want to show everybody that, we love each other. We love the audience, and we love playing music, and we're here for a reason. So the overall message is, just love each other, love what you do, trust each other, take risks, and bring the energy. We always bring the energy every live show, and that's what we want to translate on our records. And I think our new record does absolutely that.
Yeah, and I completely can agree with that. It's something we hold very dearly. Something that I will say is that if we're playing in your city and you want to have a good time, please come. Again, it's a big community effort. There's a lot of hands on deck to make things happen sometimes, and we're just trying to have a good time. Everybody's invited. Everybody's welcome. If you want to hear some good music and some guitar solos that are still being played, come check us out.
If you're hearing this right now, I'm not sure when this is going to get posted. Our show dates are Thursday, November 18th at the Mint in Los Angeles. Then we'll be playing December 14th at Madame Siam in Los Angeles. Then we're going to be going to the East Coast, touring the East, back home. We're playing a homecoming show December 30th at the Space Ballroom in Hamden, Connecticut. We're playing a house party on New Year's Eve in Brooklyn. We're playing a secret show January 2nd at the Crunch House. Not so secret anymore. And we're playing in Brooklyn or Manhattan at the Drum, January 7th, New Brunswick, New Jersey, January 6th, and January 8th we're playing in Philadelphia.